Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show where it's always a nice day for a red wedding. I'm Matt,
I'm Brian.
and that is one episode we're not going to talk about because, we never watched Game of Thrones. But I figure if we're talking about weddings that go bad, I'm pretty sure the wedding where everyone gets killed should probably be at the top of the list.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
Matt, did you rewatch any wedding episodes in preparation for this one?
nope.
All right. Well, let's see. In the past,
I wanted to. It's been a week.
I get it. But so in the past week, I've rewatched Lily and Marshall on How I Met Your Mother, Monica and Chandler, and Phoebe and Mike on Friends, Jim and Pam on The Office, Corey and Topanga on Boy Meets World, Robert and Amy on Everyday's Raymond, Becky and Jesse on Full House, and Jake and Amy on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So that's kind of my main pool to work with that I've watched in the past week.
Brian, you really need to pick up the pace here. You need to keep up with my level. So,
Well, a lot of times you're the one who's more prepared than me, so I'm just evening it out. I have to put in effort like once every 5 episodes to keep up, and this is my one.
enough effort to see you through for the next ones. Next time we have an episode, we're going to talk about Survivor Season 5, and you'll be like, I watched a recap. No, you're actually watching through that, but
I am. I came up with the idea for this podcast mainly based off of one episode, which I think I've always thought is the most unrealistic wedding, and that's Becky and Jesse on Full House, which I don't think you've seen that one because I think you've seen very little of Full House.
I have not. But saying most unrealistic wedding is that is a statement, man. I can think of 5 other pop culture weddings.
Well, the whole thing is real life weddings. Okay, did anything even remotely interesting happen at your wedding that would make for an interesting TV episode?
I walked out to Sharp Dressed Man, and everyone's like, "Dang, he is a sharp dressed man." So yeah.
So that would be like a scene. You wouldn't be able to
television.
Yeah. Here's the thing. In general, I'm just going to offend all of our married people. Weddings are kind of boring. It's nice because you're celebrating the couple and usually there's food and stuff afterwards, but it's not that interesting. That's just why on TV shows there has to be drama. And some of the big dramas you see in TV shows is a past love of the bride or groom who comes in and tries to face it up, interfering family members and friends, or just general wedding mishaps. Oh, the dress is wrong. Oh, we're snowed in. This is wrong. And some of that might happen in real life, but not to the point where every wedding on TV show has some combination of those elements, making it an interesting TV show.
Yeah. My wife will complain frequently about why can't they ever just let them have a good wedding? And it sucks. And, we both understand the concept of, well, then it could be a boring episode of TV. But you know what TV show, before we talk about bad weddings, actually did, I think, all of their weddings well and were interesting, and they weren't oh my gosh, everything's going crazy, is Parks and Rec. Because Andy and April's wedding was very them. It was off for everyone else, and there was a lot to watch because of their reactions, because it's a surprise wedding at their house instead of a house party. Ron and Diane's wedding was very Ron and Diane, and so Leslie and everyone's reactions to it was great, and it wasn't drawn out. It was actually a soft opening to a season. So weirdly enough,
Leslie's wait, what? Married? What?
Yeah. And Ben and Leslie's was sweet and great, and it was a nice culmination of stuff. I can't remember the details of it because Ron punched out Jam at the wedding, right?
Well, yeah. To be fair, you say nothing went wrong. Jam set off stink bombs at the wedding and got punched by Ron, but then later on they got married in the Parks and Rec office, and that one was sweet.
Yeah.
And then Joe and Donna got married, and that one was pretty normal, I think. There was a lot of hype over the Donna's family, but really nothing major happened with it.
Yeah.
And I think Tom and Lucy didn't get married.
No, we met Tom when he was fake married. They got divorced in the second season, but
it was legal. It just wasn't for love.
Still, I still think you can call it a fake
You could call
marriage.
it a fake wedding, but
It is
technically on the
legal,
books it
yes.
is legal. And then I believe, did we ever get confirmation? Did Anne and Chris get married off screen?
I think they did. I think
Yeah.
we heard that. I can't remember for sure, but I mean, it's like 5 years in the future. And so I think they had a passing remark about them being married or something.
Yeah, I believe so. All right, so back to Full House, though. I'm just going to give you a quick run through. It would have been a normal wedding, and the thing that sets it off is so Becky's parents or Becky's dad has this talk with Jesse about like, you're getting married, you can't be having any more adventures now. All your wild days are over, and it's like really being over the top about it. And then he freaks out, and this is the ring of events. Jesse kidnaps Joey, and because Joey apparently we never knew this before this. Is a pilot. He says, all right, you're going to take me skydiving. So he goes and he skydives, and he's supposed to like land and get on his bike and go to the wedding. It's like one last big thing before the wedding. He gets stuck in a tree, and he hooks himself, and he falls into the back of a tomato truck, crushing all the tomatoes. And then when the guy's arguing about the tomatoes, he tries to steal the truck, gets arrested, gets put in jail. Then he finally gets his phone call, and Becky, in her wedding dress, goes to bail him out of jail. Then her dad's car gets stolen. So they go and they basically hijack a school bus that's carrying a church choir that they take them to the wedding and then convince on the way the choir to sing for their wedding. That all happened on a wedding day. And it's like, really? I can't think of much more unrealistic than that all happening within a few hours of your wedding day.
That happens to me like every day. So that's like a normal Thursday for me.
You get married every day, or is it just random people's weddings?
I go to other people's weddings, and if you can kiss the bride before the groom does, you automatically win. You are married.
To the
it's
bride?
Legal. Check it out. It's in the American Charter.
Okay, then. So how many wives do you have?
Like 97.
I'm sure Angie's thrilled.
She's fine. She understands the arrangement. She knows what she's getting into.
Okay, I don't want to hear any more about your arrangement.
So I never watched Full House because Full House is boring and sucks. And but I did watch.
Admit I have nostalgia bias on it. So go ahead.
Yeah, see, there's some shows that like you come into, or like movies that you come into that you're like, I know I watched this way too late. Like for me, The Goonies is one of those. I saw it when I was an adult, and I think I was even outside of college. So like I'd already graduated college, and I feel like you need to see that movie either in the time period or see it at a young age because it's a different type of movie when you're like 27 in the mid 2000s.
Yeah,
that number wasn't right, but you know what I'm talking about. So. But I did. So let's look at some other weddings because.
Yeah, I started with that one because I knew you wouldn't know that one, and then. But I think everything else on my list, I believe you've seen from what I know about you.
Let's go. Let's stay on the TGIF train. Let's talk about Corey and Topanga's wedding because I remember a little bit of it. I remember that they got the hall. That Eric was like actually a weirdly great best man, even though. At the end of the episode, they get arrested, but or like brought out of the wedding room or whatever. But that he was able to find a hall that was empty and it was given for a different couple, and he pretended it was them, and the other couple didn't show up or whatever.
The Rich Peterman family.
Yeah.
Which I mean, the episode leading up to it was Eric being completely like chaotic, and he starts fires in the dorm room and in the Matthews house while trying to like do for he's a jolly good fellow. And that's when like the firemen are crashing down and Eric and the dad's like, okay, he's out, Sean's in. But then Sean has like a breakdown about them not being friends anymore. So then Eric's back in. And yeah, Eric does come through with them until the very end of the episode.
But I will say, I remember the episode after better than the wedding episode because Eric continues his best man duties by following them on the honeymoon.
Yeah.
But never interacting with them, always staying at a distance.
Did they ever even find out that he was there?
I don't think we ever talk about it in any other episode, and they don't find out in that episode either.
I'll be interested when they get to that on the Pod Meets World podcast. They just finished season 5 because they've mentioned in passing that they hate that episode. So I want to hear
Really?
their take on it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to hear that take too.
Yeah. That to me, that's basically just hijinks. They also have all the girls are wearing this super ugly bridesmaids dresses, and they're like pretending they like it. And Alan was supposed to be in charge of the music, but he's trying to get out of it by having Feeney do it for free. And
Go ahead.
I mean, and that's basically it. I mean, Eric's craziness and then Sean's outburst during the wedding ceremony are like the two big ones for that show.
So here's a question. Let's throw a dart at a board for our next one. If you were getting married and your wedding had to go exactly like one of these other episodes that we're going to talk about, which one would you number one hate the most?
I would hate the most.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I'm going through my list here.
All right, I'll give you mine. Here's one that
Okay.
you haven't seen. So in the TV show Smallville,
Okay.
Chloe gets married to Jimmy Olsen, and in that season is the Doomsday season, who's one of Superman's villains. He's a giant monster creature, and but he is like kind of inhabiting in a way, like just a normal human guy. Is their way of not having to have the Doomsday makeup the entire time. So
Yeah.
he looks like a normal human, and it's like this Doomsday monster keeps trying to escape, and every now and then it's almost like a werewolf type situation. So by middle of the season, Jimmy and Chloe are going to get married, and they kind of do like a found footage episode. So it's like, from the point of view of camera, a little bit like Cloverfield. And they get married, and at the wedding reception, because the guy that the Doomsday was inside befriended Chloe, and he fell in love with Chloe, and Chloe was like, she was convinced, like, no, he doesn't like me, and I definitely don't like him, although she had a little bit of that. So he's not really an ex, but in a way, an ex comes to the wedding as the Doomsday monster smashes in, like hurts people. Jimmy gets hurt. You think he might die. And like the final clip of the show is her agreeing to go with Doomsday while her husband is laying there like bleeding out. Like, I'll go with you. Just leave everyone alone. And like takes her like a beast and like runs off. I think for me, that might be my least favorite turn of events for a wedding.
So the wedding never actually happens, and the bride's ex basically kidnaps her away.
I haven't seen this for a while, but I feel fairly certain that it did happen, and it was at the reception that the beast comes in.
Okay.
Yeah,
that would not be fun.
No, I give it 2 thumbs down is what I do.
Yeah, I think so. You and I have both been married. You still are, but I think the worst thing.
I used to be married. I still am, but I used to be as well.
Yeah, I think our listeners by now know a little bit about my life. I think the worst thing that happened was at the reception. I didn't get enough food because everyone's always wanting you to take pictures with them and talk to them, and then I wanted more egg rolls. But
yeah, I mean, what they lampshade that, I think, in The Office with Michael, where he's like, they say you don't even get a piece of, you're lucky to get a piece of your own wedding cake or whatever. And weirdly, it is true, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, unless you really fight and prioritize, I'm going to eat and no one's going to talk to me while I'm eating, you're going to get pulled aside and like be like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to finish my food. Because my wife and I, we had McDonald's that night after everything was all said and done. And we were like, we're still hungry. We didn't get to eat.
Yeah, I don't even remember what I was at your wedding. What did you guys have served for food?
I think we had we had a chicken, and I think it might have been a chicken cordon bleu. Maybe we were that fancy. I don't know, but there was a choice between that and like some sort of beef thing. I think. I mean, at the same time, I might be just pulling stuff out because that might have been what they pitched, and then we went with something different, and he's just like, "What?"
Yeah.
So
on the going along the line of going over the line of a past relationship, let's go to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because I think that might be one of the ones that out of my list that would be the most annoying. So to refresh your memory, a bomb threat was called into the wedding, and there was a whole like, is it fake? Is it real? Turns out it was real. But then the head of the bomb squad was Teddy, who's the super boring guy who used to date Amy, and the running gag is he's constantly trying to get Amy back. And even throughout the episode, while he's doing his job as leader of the bomb squad, trying to find out what's going on, he's still like, "Oh yeah, do you want to just leave Jake and come with me?" And just that would be so irritating. And even at the wedding, he volunteers to have the ring bearer be a bomb robot, which Jake loves, and he's saying like, so when do you guys do the when do you object thing? And they're like, we're not doing that. Oh man, you've thwarted me again.
Whenever I perform weddings, I haven't done many. I think I've done like 2 or 3. Whenever I have, I've done that line that does anyone object, but only to like make a joke out of it. Like I think the last one I did was my sister-in-law's. Like, if anyone has any reason these two should not be married, keep it to yourself. We don't really care.
Yeah. I've never been to a wedding that even said that, even on a joke. I think if you're gonna do it jokingly, but I think it's more of a TV thing, or maybe it was a thing back in like a couple generations back when it was more common. But
I might have heard it as a kid outside of TV, but I don't think I've heard it maybe ever, but definitely not in the last 10, 15 years.
It's a common thing in TV shows because it's like a ripe opening for some kind of drama.
Yeah.
And then also with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, let's see, Amy's veil went missing, and then they didn't have a ring bearer, so they were going to use Cheddar the dog, and then Cheddar ate the cake.
Yes. Was this also it was in charge of the Balloon Arch, or am I conflating that with another episode?
That was a different episode. Was that another? Did anybody else get married on that show?
I don't know. I can't remember what the Balloon Arch was for. Was that Pimento and Roses?
It was either Pimento and Rosa, or also didn't Holt and Kevin do a vow renewal?
They did, but I don't think it was for that. Or actually, I said they did with confidence. I have no idea, but it wasn't for that.
I think it was Holt and I think it was Rosa and Pimento, because Rosa at the end was like, "Hey, that Balloon Arch is cool," and that's when you get him going, "Vindication!"
Yep, we did it.
That's a good show.
We finish each other's
sandwiches.
No.
Ever since Frozen, that's how you finish that sentence.
I was gonna say never mind. I don't even care. All right.
I feel like I ruined your joke and I don't get it, but I like that you're annoyed.
All right. Well, so no, that's not. So let's go with what I name myself after, because we have multiple weddings in the TV show Friends, and the one that I picked was Ross's first wedding. No, technically his second wedding, but the first wedding we see.
His first on-screen wedding.
His first on-screen wedding to Emily, where he says Rachel's name instead. And like that's something I don't know if you come back from. Like maybe you do if you have a forgiving enough person, but because she was already questioning his relationship with Rachel, for him to say, like, I know it got worse after that, but like there was those seeds beforehand of like, you were friends with your ex, that's it. But at the wedding saying that, like, that's so hard to come back from.
Yeah, and it's not just like, it was a wrong name. It wasn't like, I said Emma instead of Emily. No, you said your ex-girlfriend's name who's sitting there in the service. That's, I admit, I don't know how you come back from that.
And because of that, I am fully on her side about I don't want you spending time with Rachel anymore. I know that kind of put her, from our point of view, because we're following the Friends, put her as a villain in a little bit, but I completely 100% agree and side with her. Like he clearly has feelings for her, even if he's trying not to. Like he does, and he needs to just have a clean break in order for that relationship to have any shot of working.
Yeah, I can see that. The thing I can't come along with is her trying to bully Ross into moving to London, because he has a son in New York, and she's basically trying to get him to like, hey, move across the country from your son. That part, I think I'm not with her on. But I definitely see your point there.
Exactly. Like he can be in the same city. I know she's in London. That's going to make it hard. But at the same time, if you're like, I can't be in a different city as my husband, without worrying he's going to go hang out with his ex-girlfriend, then, the writing's on the wall for the relationship anyway.
Yeah. I think as soon as he said Rachel, everybody on and off screen basically knew the wedding was over. Ross was in denial for a long time, but I think deep down he knew. So
what was wrong with Mona? Sorry.
That's just it. Mona was normal, which means that she's not that interesting. Although, to be fair, relatively Mike was somewhat normal too, and he ended up lasting with Phoebe. So maybe let's go into that one. So we'll come back to Chandler and Monica, but Phoebe and Mike was very much there's no conflict between Phoebe and Mike. There's even at one point Phoebe is freaking out, talking to the florist who's speaking in another language. He's like, "What would you call orchids? Orchids? Right there. That's why I'm marrying you." See, like when everything was going around, it was never conflict between Phoebe and Mike, but it was Monica was the wedding coordinator or wedding manager and was just going crazy psycho. And then at the same time, Joey was acting weird because he's like being her dad because he's walking her down the aisle. Ross and Chandler are trying to convince Rachel to let them be in the wedding. And then in addition to all that, they get snowed in. Basically have to do like an outside wedding in the snow. So that's where all the everything was happening around them.
Yeah. And that was fine. I like the Chandler Monica episode for their wedding much better, but I think that's completely fine. I felt like the wedding didn't quite match Phoebe's unusualness. I feel like the writers struggled to like capture what makes Phoebe in the wedding, and I think that was maybe my only real complaint with it, which is whatever. It's fine. Well,
maybe the original wedding was going to be more Phoebe, but then at the end is basically like here's what we can get at the last minute because their original venue was snowed in. The original wedding party basically is just like their wedding. It was kind of out of conveniences. What can we do here in the snow right now?
Yeah,
they ended up having Joey marry them because the minister was snowed in. So maybe that original wedding would have been. And they did mention that her wedding, that her friend who smelled bad, who wasn't going to shower till Tibet was free, was going to play the steel drums.
Yeah.
So there's that.
We need more steel drums. I will say though that the Chandler Monica wedding, that's one of the reasons I liked it is because there was conflict, but the conflict felt very like real, Joey not having someone get delayed. Actually, so talking about my wedding is we had a number of people that were delayed for whatever reason. So we had some groomsmen. We were driving. We stayed overnight like 20 minutes away, and then like the groomsmen did. And so we're on the way to the church, and we drive in two separate whatever. And so to get to the church in the town that we're in, we have to go on the interstate and then go one exit and then get off of it. If you miss that exit, you don't have a shot of getting off of the interstate for about 10, 15 minutes. And so it was like 30 extra minutes of backtracking because they couldn't get off and back on again for a while. And so they were missing. And then there was some sort of issue with our photographer that she got delayed or like she was missing for a while. So actually what we did is one of my groomsmen that was there and then like a couple other ones, he's like a piano player. So he was like playing a bunch of like his like songs from the 80s. And then I just start like singing along with them. And so we're like putting on a show for like the other groomsmen that were there. And then the other wedding party could hear it way off in the other part of the church. They can hear us kind of just doing karaoke. So I pretty much did like, there wasn't anyone else besides us, but I did like this minor karaoke sort of set for like an hour while we're waiting for people to show up. And that is 100% something that would have happened in one of these TV shows to like fill the time of the episode.
Yeah. That
so
it's like
I
real
did
life,
have a TV wedding.
like real life vamping.
That really was, yeah.
I will say so. Way back when my sister and Paul got married, I remember they got married at North Central, and we were taking pictures in the front of the TJ library. Basically, so for listeners, it's basically an old building, and then it's at the top of a hill. And I still remember one of the ushers, who we both know, Jason. I remember hearing him go, "And they're rolling." And what he means is the Bring Bear and Flower Girl, in their suit and nice white dress, decided, I'm going to roll down in the grass right now and have fun because they're little 5-year-olds. And that was like, okay, and hopefully there's no grass stains on the white dress and stuff. But it's not huge, but that was fun. I don't remember.
You don't remember stains? Come on, man.
I was not in charge of the Flower Girl.
At the most recent wedding I was at last June, my kids, after the wedding, thankfully, but I mean, like, we're all in really nice dress clothes. This is an outdoor wedding. They're all playing and like rolling down a hill as well, and like, on their knees in the grass. It's like, that's not good for slacks, guys.
No.
But this was a realistic for the Chandler Monica one.
Because the Chandler Monica, yeah.
The other thing with that was the pregnancy question. Like, no one knew who was pregnant. And that was a very non-forced storyline for it to be like, this is a fun little mystery. Oh, Monica's pregnant. And then the twist at the end actually was Rachel. Mm-hmm. And like, obviously she wouldn't say anything because it's Ross and Phoebe, or not Ross, it's Chandler and Monica's day, so she's keeping it to herself, and yet Phoebe knows, and so she's trying to figure it out. And who did she partner with Chandler on, or partner with Ross on it?
No, the only people who knew about the pregnancy were Phoebe and Rachel, and then they were talking about it, not knowing that Chandler was like in a closet behind the door overhearing them, and then Chandler overheard them.
Gotcha. Remind me of his reaction to it too.
So Chandler was like hiding at the ceremony, and he was like having a cigarette, or going to have a cigarette. He heard them say like, "Oh, and don't tell them Monica's pregnant," because they frown on that. And the door opens up, and Chandler pops his head out with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, just looking like, "Huh?"
That's right. And then he thinks he's going to run away, which gives me my favorite. I think my favorite Jack Geller. Yeah. The Jack Geller line. Dad, have you seen Chandler? We're playing hide and seek. Well, I can't tell you where he's at, son. That's cheating.
The earnestness, and like, not only does Jack not know what's going on with Chandler, he also doesn't question that Ross and Chandler, 2 grown men in their 30s, are playing hide and seek on their wedding day.
I love that. But it was a nice character growth for him, because like, he comes to realize, like, actually, I think I am ready for this. If I'm ready to take this wedding and jump into it, maybe this is the woman I want to have kids with. Well,
and the second time he didn't run away. He came back with a onesie that said, like a baby onesie that says, I've heard New York, I think.
Yeah. It was. Yep. Yeah. So that's one of the best. I like that wedding episode a lot.
Until the very end, I'm wondering, did Jennifer Aniston know that it was going to be her that was pregnant when they were filming the scene? Like, so what happens is they're in the bathroom, Phoebe and Rachel are, and then they find the pregnancy test, and then Rachel does a really good job at acting like, oh yeah, I didn't know about that either. I wonder if when they were filming that, did she think it was her did she think it was Monica who was going to be pregnant, or did she have the whole script?
I would imagine she had the whole script. That I don't feel like hiding parts of scripts was done as much back then. No. I think once the internet got bigger than it was, and there's the increased amount of leaks online, that's when we started seeing only partial scripts.
Yeah. Which, okay, loose segue. A show that did a hidden reveal for an actor, not in the wedding episode, but for a different one, was How I Met Your Mother, when Jason Segel didn't know that his dad was going to be dead when Lily told him. But so that's just my segue to get into talking about Lily and Marshall and How I Met Your Mother.
There you go.
Which, okay, Lily and Marshall, I mean, this is also a trend, and this will segue into the one after that, they get married before the wedding and have one of their friends do the ceremony they got married with just the core 5 of them, with Barney doing the ceremony. And it had the same, past love. Lily's ex-boyfriend Scooter comes in and he tries to thwart the wedding. And then just general stuff. The main thing is like, Marshall has his crazy hair tips, and then he has a panic moment and shaves the middle of his head down. And then there's that. I love the great line where they're trying all these different stuff to cover up. He's like, hat. We thought of authentic Native American headdress before we thought of hat.
I don't remember what you said before. I think it was before this episode started, but I almost quoted that to you because it was a similar situation. Like, oh, we thought of this before the obvious word.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. That's like the line that stands out in that episode to me. I think it's hilarious. I also really like when they're I can't remember who the uncle is or whatever, but they are like, oh, maybe we can find someone who has a toupee.
Oh, yeah.
And then the guy who has the very obvious toupee is like, yeah, but who do you think has one? And he's acting like sincerely like he's looking. And it's just like, come on, we're trying to be nice. Let us borrow your toupee.
He's like, can you think of anybody who has hair the same color as toupee, the same color as yours and Marshall's hair? He's like, no, not off the top of my. Nope. And then the best thing is, so Barney has discovered that all he has to say is the bride needs this, and everyone will do everything they want for him. So he just rips it off and says the bride needs this and keeps walking.
That is correct. That is the power phrase you can use to get anything you need.
Yeah.
Also, the same if like at the funeral of the person, the spouse of the deceased, if you can use that, like, oh, they need this, like, oh yeah, whatever.
So you are conning people at a lot of funerals?
Usually. Hey, if you are the first one to kiss the dead body, you get to have that dead body and take it home with you. That's another fun little arrangement we've got.
Right, officers, his name is Matt Rodenberg.
And everyone's like, and that I've been looking for a reason to unsubscribe to this. That's going to do it.
Yeah. I don't know where to go from this. Okay, there's a lot of things that I expect you to say on a podcast. That's talking about kidnapping dead bodies is not one of them.
But only after kissing them first. That makes it okay, obviously.
Yes, that makes it better, not worse.
Come on, what are you gonna do with them? Right? I'm gonna put it in the ground. Just leave it there. Let the worms eat it.
It's kind of like you heard this one is like, I was at the beach playing sandcastles with my dad, making sandcastles with my dad, and my mom's like, "That's not what the urn is for."
That's not what the what is for?
The urn is making sandcastles with my dad.
That's a darker version of the like. I was out cleaning the car with my son, and he said, "Dad, can we please use a sponge?" And there you go. All right, so we asked the question like, what would be like one of the worst for things to happen? One of the lighter interruptions for a wedding, I think, would probably be the flashback wedding we see of Ray Barone and Deborah Barone, because they're outside of the actual wedding ceremony. Before the ceremony, there was like a little bit of like, oh, cold feet. And he didn't really have cold feet. It's just like the general nerves that you get, And so Deborah really like talks him into it, and then just kind of does her Deborah like moment too. After like the sweetness doesn't work, she just yells at him like, "If you got cold feet, get some socks," and storms off. His dad is like, "Oh, if you need to get through it," and like offers him a little bit of like alcohol, some Irish courage, puts it in his pocket. And then afterwards, like he's just giddy and excited that he got to marry his wife, but she thinks, he was drunk, and it kind of comes out that his dad gave him that alcohol, but he's like, no, I never broke the seal. I was just excited to marry you. So like that conflict in and of itself makes just fine television conflict. Then the worst part of it is during the actual ceremony. Wait, no, I'm confusing the two, aren't I? Because it's
the thing is, you're talking about Ray and Deborah, which I didn't rewatch, but I remember that one. I was about to talk about the Ray and Robert and Amy one. Robert and Amy is the one where Marie interrupted the ceremony.
You're right. I was combining the two because after his dad gives him the drink and he puts it in his pocket, we don't see him not drink it. We assume maybe he did because he's acting like he's drunk during the wedding ceremony. And it's really funny. It's really silly, but it's actually kind of a sweet thing too.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Robert and Amy. This is where I thought we were going to go with this is what happens when you don't watch things. You just go off memory.
Not a ton happens before the ceremony. I mean, there's this whole runner where it's like Robert is in the bathroom of the wedding chapel, and he's trying to be alone. First, Ray's in there trying to like get him to help run a speech. Then he runs in. Then Marie comes in, is trying to like give him advice, and then Ray comes in, gets him out of there. Then Frank goes in. Then like everybody cycles in to the men's room, including Marie, everyone but Deborah, and then. That's kind of whatever. It's kind of a cool set piece. But then the big thing is like Marie, during the ceremony, comes in, I feel I need to say something. And she goes on this big, long speech about like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, we all love Amy, but you messed up on your first marriage. Because like the storyline with Everybody Knows Raymond is before the series began, Robert is already divorced.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of references to his first marriage. But the funny thing is like, as Marie's going on, Ray, as you know, the best man, he just like he knows where this is going. He just sits down on the stage and puts his hand down on his fist, like, oh my gosh. And then a little while later, the minister goes and sits down next to Ray. Like they're both just like, when is this lady going to stop talking?
Well, Amy's face is like abject horror at like how embarrassed she is. Mm-hmm. What does Deborah do? Did Deborah sit down too? What was her reaction?
I'm not sure if she did. I think Deborah just stood there, but at one point she was saying like, that's what you need to make a marriage work, right, Frank? And Frank's like, I don't know you, crazy lady. But then afterwards at the reception, Amy's mom went to Marie, and Amy's mom has the super sweet voice like, I don't think you should have done that. I think that was not for Robert and Amy. That was for you. And I think that was you being a little narcissistic. And then Ray comes over to Amy's mom, was like, how did you do that? No one's ever said that to her. That was amazing. And in the end, actually, Ray's speech kind of brought everyone back together, and it ended good. But yeah, it was like the mother of the groom interfering and giving all this, you're sure you want to do this advice in the ceremony during the wedding.
Yes. Yeah. So awkwardness to the max. Yes. Or as the kids say, cringe. Correct. Speaking of cringe humor, The Office.
I was going to say, we can't get out of this without talking about Jim and Pam.
Before we talk about Jim and Pam, I know we never got to see Michael's wedding. We got to see Dwight and Angela's, and we could talk about that one too, because there's
Phyllis and Bob. Yeah,
Phyllis and Bob. I mean, we could, but that's of how great season 3 is. The Phyllis and Bob episode feels like it's a small misstep. There's some funny moments in it, but I just feel like it's not as strong as the rest of season 3.
Yeah, there's a reason I didn't watch that episode again. But obviously the big one is Jim and Pam. But we're talking about Michael and Holly's wedding.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Michael and Holly because even though we didn't get to see them get married, they gave us the other part of it. They gave us the proposal, and so we got to see the proposal. Which the proposal was a wonderful proposal, and really the only thing that went wrong was they set off the sprinklers with the candles, which I think is a really clever like callback to when Jim's telling his story of the proposal, and then he talks about how it was raining, and Michael's just like, oh, you didn't mention the weather was bad. Like just the disdain that he has for this story of like, I don't want my story to be anything like that, but to still give them the rain anyway, and to kind of almost turn his head around like, oh yeah, I guess it is a little romantic because this is what you remember.
No, yeah, and like, I don't know. Do you think people from The Office would have gone to Michael, or would they have been invited? Or at that point, do you think that Michael was kind of like, I don't need to have all the validation again?
I think they absolutely would have been invited, but at the same time, I do also think that Michael would have grown at that point. I feel bad for his kids because they probably get smothered by him, by his neediness. Yeah. But still, you wanted that happy ending for Michael and Holly, and that proposal was really good. They let it be what it was with some humor in it, but it was the sweetness more than it was. Something goes wrong, it's chaos, blah blah blah.
Along with Michael, they talked about this on the Office Ladies podcast about how in the finale, they had that panel without the cast, but Michael wasn't in there, and they were saying like in universe, like why wasn't Michael there? Because the documentary crew would have flown Stanley back from Florida. They would have flown, Jim was still there, but like Daryl back from and Andy back from their places, and they said in their mind that what probably happened was they probably offered to fly Michael in for that, but at that point Michael didn't need like to be the center of attention like he did when he was on the show, which made sense that he would have come back for Dwight's wedding though, and that's how they got him back for that part without it breaking the character development.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to look at that.
Yep. But Jim and Pam's wedding. So the actual wedding, even though they also did the we get married beforehand on the boat wedding, not a whole lot of craziness happens the day of the wedding. A lot of their craziness was before, with Andy getting injured and Pam having to take care of him, and Jim getting drunk with Michael and Dwight sleeping with Pam's cousin,
and the speech the night before with her grandma.
Yep, which I love that it was Jim who gave it away. And Michael's like, I thought it was going to be me too who gave it away. I mean, Michael made it worse after the fact, but Michael was able to not be the one to spill the secret to Pam's grandma about her being pregnant.
But to be fair, when he's like, oh, not Pam, obviously. No, like, I don't care how tone deaf you are to social cues. You're not going to interrupt a speech and be like, why not Pam? You're not going to do that.
True, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm so sorry for everyone who I've just shattered the reality. Like, no, this would happen.
Well, there's things like it's well established that we love The Office on the show, but it's still not a flawless show. There's stuff in it that's like, okay, this isn't the best.
Yeah, and it's fine. It doesn't ruin anything for that to be the way it was. The whole section. It like is sweet, and it gives me a really good association with Chris Brown's song "Forever" of the wedding dance of all of them, and while they're getting married on the boat.
Yeah,
and it's sweet. We don't hear their vows to each other, but instead they have the talking head, and especially like Jim's talking head is really good about it, of like his plan A, B, and C.
Yeah, which originally. There was early scripts of that had Roy was going to show up on a horse and try to like win Pam back, which at that point, I mean, Roy had been gone for years at that point. And then they had the story of the comedy that Dwight was going to buy the horse from Roy and try to ride the horse over Niagara Falls. And you were going to see Dwight and the horse flying off Niagara Falls in the background of the wedding. I'm kind of glad all that was cut. That would have been a little bit too much. They talked about that on Office Ladies, that was some of the original concepts for Jim and Pam's wedding.
The Dwight jumped the Niagara Falls would be,
or tried to. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Jumped the shark a little earlier than we think it did.
Yeah. All right. But did you want to talk about Dwight and Angela's wedding?
Sure. I didn't have that one planned, but I mean, I recently watched that one. Again, with that one, there was some bachelorette party shenanigans, but the actual wedding kind of went smoothly. There really wasn't much at the wedding, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think I like what they did, where they kind of flipped it on its head with Jim of the Gutenpronks.
Yeah.
Where, like, we've seen Dwight suffer enough. We've seen Dwight be the butt of the jokes enough. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, okay, we're going to let Dwight have his time to shine. We're going to let this be what it should be, instead of haha, look at Dwight and Angela and how weird they are, because that's all we've seen of them. So
well, and I know you love Jim, and I do too, but like there's an argument to be made that sometimes Jim's pranks go overboard, but I think that was a good showing that like Jim is not going to let pulling a funny prank like overrule his like wanting to respect Dwight having a good wedding day, and Angela, but he's closer with Dwight.
Yeah, and it's a good culmination of their friendship and their arc. Especially in that last season, they really were like, let's highlight how like they're actually close and they're actually friends, and there's respect there, even if it doesn't seem like there has been all these years long.
But I will say one thing. So in the finale, we find out that Creed faked his death, and Creed at the panel was like hiding in the crowd, and they like didn't discover him until they were in the bullpen at the office at the very end. But Creed was at Dwight and Angela's wedding. Did they know he was alive? Did they invite him, or did he just crash it?
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, because you see, Creed shows up because they see like a few different people bringing cats as wedding gifts, and Creed's giving a cat, and he says some extra. He's like, "My name is such and such. I can show you my social security card if you don't believe me," and just being super awkward about like, "I'm not Creed." So, did he just crash the wedding, or did they know? I don't know. I mean, you don't have to answer these questions, but yeah,
he probably in universe would mean that he would have to have crashed it.
But then they would have all seen him, and he still looks like Creed.
How dare you pick apart The Office? No one should do that. You don't see me coming in here picking it apart with my nitpicky behavior.
Nitpicky behavior, yep.
Yeah, those are the words that I chose. Thank you for repeating them slowly for maximum effect.
Yes. Well, that was actually all of the ones that I had prepared. Only other thing off the top of my head, so I know Family Matters did a thing where the grandma was getting remarried, and there was some like, Carl didn't want his mom to get a new husband, and then the kids were going to be throwing a rave, and ended up being on the same day, and then shenanigans ensue. But I don't remember much about that besides that. Do you have any other TV weddings you can think of off the top of your head?
We had a Chuck with both Chuck and Sarah's wedding, and then Awesome's and Ellie's wedding. And Awesome and Ellie's wedding was the one that got completely canceled because of the Ring, and they were trying to stop the Ring from taking over. And so we had Jester had to buy some time while they were getting the Ring back and getting Chuck like back to the ceremony. So they performed Mr. Roboto, and then their pyrotechnics set off the sprinklers, and it showers on everyone. And then I think there was like the stinger before the commercial. She was like, "Wedding ruined," or "Wedding off," or whatever. And I can't remember. They got married after that. It was another one of those like intimate afterwards when the whole ceremony was ruined. I can't remember that exact wedding.
I watched all of Chuck very early on in this podcast because we talked about it, but I haven't watched it since. So all of Chuck is very foggy because by now it's been like 4 years since I've watched Chuck.
Yeah, the Chuck and Sarah wedding was kind of backwards, where it was at the bridal shower, she gets targeted by that one weapon they were trying to stop Volkov from using. And so she gets targeted by it. She's dying, and Chuck has to save her life before he can marry her because, she's going to die.
Yeah.
So it's getting to save her life and working with Alexei Volkov to save her and reverse the effects of the weapon. And then they have the actual ceremony that goes off without a hitch after that. So it's the opposite, where the wedding gets ruined versus save her so that you can have that perfect wedding that you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all that I've got. That's all the weddings. And so it's February. It's Valentine's Day. We probably already have had Valentine's Day by this point. Love is in the air. It's February is our favorite month to care about love, presidents, and Black people. And so make sure you make the most of your February and the love that you've got, that you share. Were you inspired by that, Brian? That was just off the top of my head.
I was so inspired that I'm speechless.
I knew it. Well, since that's all that we've got, let's go ahead and jump into trivia real quick. So last week we talked about what were we talking about? I remembered. So last week we talked about TV shows from 2024. One of the shows that we talked about was Shrinking. They had their new season last year. And real quick before I ask the trivia question, I watched a couple things that we didn't watch. I have to give credit and props to the show Skeleton Crew. It is fantastic. If you like, we talked about the Goonies earlier. if you like movies like The Goonies or Stand By Me or like those more or even Stranger Things, like those kid focused shows, they do a really good job of harnessing the whimsical manner of those shows while also putting it in a Star Wars universe, but not like relying too much on the Jedi and the lightsabers and kind of the Star Wars mythos. It's just it's the best. From my wife's point of view, it's her favorite Star Wars content because it's just so like relatable. It's so familiar. So if you're not like a Star Wars fan, don't let that stop you from watching Skeleton Crew. It's a really good show.
I haven't watched it yet, but for listeners, just a preview. Later on in 2025, we'll be doing an episode on Skeleton Crew. So by the time we do that, I'll have listened to it and I can give my thoughts.
By the time we do that, I might have started it. Who knows? We'll see. Surprise. So I just wanted to hit on that. But we did talk about Shrinking season 2. And in that season, Harrison Ford's character goes to this arc. Our question was, what real life event or like what actor friend from Bill Lawrence's time helped to influence Harrison Ford's arc? And so Harrison Ford, he's dealing with Parkinson's diagnosis. And Bill Lawrence, who worked with Michael J. Fox on Spin City and has been close friends with him for a while, actually used and worked with Michael J. Fox. I believe he talked a little bit with him about living with that diagnosis and some of the questions behind that. And he took that idea and he put it into the screen with giving it to Harrison Ford's character. So it was his way of kind of honoring him and the struggle that Michael J. Fox has been through, and then countless others who have gone through Parkinson's and dealing with that disease.
Nice. And then for this week, trivia, the episode that kind of sparked the idea for this episode was the wedding episode of Full House, which is just called The Wedding, parts 1 and 2, I believe. In that episode, there is a character who performs a skill of his he has in real life. So who is that character that performs the skill that actor has in real life? That's a really clunky way to say it, but I don't know how else to say it.
I know who it is. It's Bob Saget. He cleans in real life.
I don't know if he cleans in this episode, but you could say Bob Saget sings, which in the episode, which he actually does sing, and I think he sang in real life.
I'm not going to say that. No, I don't agree. I don't think he does. I think he was lip syncing, and I think it was actually Steve who was singing on his behalf.
Who's Steve?
Is that from whoever? Aladdin.
Oh, the character Steve. No, well, two things. First, the wedding
thought I was
episode,
right with the name.
This wedding episode in season 4 is before Steve was on that show, and but here's the thing: Scott Weinger, who played Steve, didn't actually do the singing voice of Aladdin. He did the speaking voice, and someone else did the singing voice of Aladdin.
Yeah, that's why he could sing for Bob Saget, because his voice sounds like Bob Saget's singing voice, but it doesn't sound like his singing voice. So you're welcome. You learned something new today.
I have no idea what just happened, but sure.
I will debate this from the point of wrongness as much as I can. All right. Well, apparently we've had some blows to the head, so we're going to get out of here, and we'll see you next week for Survivor. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
We're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.